Well, this will be good. Now I've got film of a lot of shotgun things that we did. I've got some running game out of the shotgun. I got some of those trick play. I got a bunch of probably 4 or 5 different trick plays on there. Whatever you guys. I mean, I'll stay as late as y'all want to stay and look at all that stuff. But just the shotgun. A little bit of history on how we got into it. Of course, you know, coaching Charlie Ward was a lot of fun. I mean, he was a great player, but he wasn't that much fun the first couple games of his junior year when he first started. He led the entire nation in interceptions the first 2 games, and he had 8 interceptions the first 2 ball games. We played Duke at home, and he had 4 interceptions, and then but he threw 4 TDs, so it wasn't so bad. And then we played Clemson at Clemson, and he threw 4 interceptions in that game. And on the 4th one, they returned it for a touchdown, and took the lead, and about gave the ball game away. And they had the momentum, they had the lead, they had everything, and I mean, you talk about feeling sick. I mean, I couldn't even breathe. After the 8th interception of the year, the 4th one of the game. You see your job on the line, your fellow coaches' jobs on the line. I mean, it wasn't very good. But, I was sitting there watching that guy score a touchdown. Again, I said I couldn't breathe. I thought it was just that I was just so nervous and just in shock. But it was Wally Burnham, our linebacker coach, choking me to death up in the box. Because the defense had won that ball game, But anyway, but we had to get in the shotgun to bail ourselves out of the Clemson game. And Charlie just went right down the field. We didn't go predominantly shotgun that game, but we went into our no huddle and quick tempo no huddle offense, and we did well there. And then against Miami 2 years ago, we were losing, and we had a drive to get with. We were down by 3, and we went down the field about 65 yards in less than a minute with maybe a timeout. I don't even know if we had a timeout. And we went right down the field. We ended up missing the field goal again, wide right, and then. We played Georgia Tech, and we were at Georgia Tech, and we were losing. We needed to score 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, and including an onside kick that we had to get on. And so the beginning of the 4th quarter, we just went into the shotgun and the no huddle, and Charlie threw for like 200 yards and ran for about 40 or 50 yards or whatever, and didn't throw an interception in the shotgun. Every time we went in the shotgun, he never had an interception. And he ended up running for yards, and we spread people out and really did a good job in it. So, finally we figured out maybe we ought to just start a ball game in the thing and see what happens. The shotgun to us, the only reason why we were in the shotgun was that the summer prior to that season, 2 years ago, we said, well, in 2-minute offense, we'll run the shotgun. Everybody knows we're going to throw. We'll put about 3 or 4 plays in. We'll protect. Matter of fact, when we first put it in, it looked like this. We had a receiver in there, and we actually had a back sitting there. We had a quarterback and no backs when we first started out, because we were just going to. We figured a 3-man rush, at worst a 4-man rush at the end of a ball game, and we just go in this shotgun. We ran the same type of plays in the 2-minute offense that we used to run when we were in our base. We might have had that type of deal, or those guys running corners instead of curls, and or some verticals and maybe some quick slant. But we might have had 5 or 6 passing plays that we normally carried in our 2-minute offense, and that's all we had. We didn't have any other protections. We didn't have any running game. We didn't have anything out of it. Well, when we got into the Miami game, we lined up in this, and I kind of got off track. But we lined up in the Miami game, and they lined up, in their little 2-deep look, and we didn't have any backs, and they realized, if we start blitzing, one guy and playing zone behind it from either side, they were getting us in a hot situation. We were having to throw hot into a zone coverage, and we really didn't want to have to do that. So we said, well, we better get this back in here. And then that's when we played Georgia Tech. We took the back. This was still a running back. He was a wide receiver. These are all wide receivers, but he was still the Z. He was the X. He was the Ted. And he was the Z, Y, Ted, and X, and this was the running back here. Well, then we said we got to put this running back here to at least be able to protect. We could at least handle these guys here, work the back here, block here, and then we'd have only one hot side there. We figured we'd have a little bit better passing game out of it. So we just took him out of the game. But we told this kid to run the same routes, only run it from the backfield. And so Georgia Tech, we play the game like that. Well, we get in the Georgia Tech game. They had a guy named Marlon Williams, runs about 4'4", 4'5", outside linebacker. And what he did is he just sat on the weak side almost the entire ball game and just put his hand on the line, and he just started screaming at Charlie, putting us in a hot situation on the weak side. So we got in the middle of that ball game, and even though our protections didn't quite match up, we just told our running back, who I think Tiger McMillan was in there the majority of the game, we just said, listen, Tiger, wherever number 5 lines up, you just line up over there and try to block him. So they started saying, all right, if you're going to move him over there to block him, then we'll start bringing heat from both sides, and you guys aren't going to be able to pick it up. You're going to end up being hot every time. So we said, boy, it'd be great if we could just get in here and get into our 7-man protection by bringing our fullback back in the game. So after the Georgia Tech game, we said, we ought to have the ability to get both backs in there. Now, if they bring these 7 inside here, we can block those 7 and throw one-on-one to our wide receivers. So then that kind of just, it was no new thoughts for us because we had been doing 7-man protections forever at Florida State. But we kind of started out with no backs, and we felt like we needed a back to help protect a little bit. Then we wanted to get another back in there to protect some of your, what we call a stack or a 4-3 look. We can block everybody in the 4-3 look. And we were going to force them into some kind of an 8-man look to be able to blitz more than we could block in that situation. But that gave us more of a 3-deep look, which we'd rather throw against a 3-deep look. So that's how the thing started going. Well, by the time we got to the Maryland game, and we decided to start the ball game in it, we had the 1-back and the 2-back gun, a few more passes that we used to run out of 2 backs with the tight end. We just kept, a wide receiver playing the Y. And we went into the game like that. We still had no running game whatsoever. And so we said, let's just start the game in a 2-minute offense tempo and see what happens. And, our biggest concerns were, how long can these receivers hold up before they die, running routes every down. And we finally got to where we felt like we were too deep at every position at the Y. We moved to running back to this Ted and kind of taught him what to do. So we felt like, and the weather, was cooler at the end of the year. Beginning of the year when we did this against Miami, both teams ran out of IVs for that ball game. It was hot. It was a 12 o'clock game. And seriously, we had kids in there that didn't even know what they were doing at the end of the ball game because everybody just ran out of gas. Charlie ran out of gas. The receivers ran out of gas, and the defensive lineman for Miami ran out of gas. That's when if you get into a little bit of this shotgun and no huddle stuff, you'll realize the people that get fatigued are the wide receivers and the defensive front for the other team. And that was, part of, as we got into running this thing, we knew that the strategy would be to tire out the D linemen. Even if we weren't that successful, if they're chasing that quarterback down after down, they're not going to be as tough against the run later on in the ball game if we want to line up and try to mash the ball a little bit. So we got to the Maryland game, we start the thing, and we scored 10 touchdowns in a row. We went 10 drives, 10 touchdowns. We had 850-some yards of offense in that game. And we thought we might have something, but, Maryland wasn't the best defensive team in America. And so we really didn't know for sure what we had. Then the next week was Tulane. We did the same thing. We scored like 50-some points in the first half. And just the thing was just going, and they really couldn't stop us. But, when we played Maryland, they had no time to prepare. They knew we did it at the end of the ball game. They didn't think we'd start the game with it. So we caught them off guard. Tulane didn't have but a couple days to even think about what was going on. And then the next game we played was against the University of Florida. And they had a little more time to think about how to attack it. And they also had some athletes that, we felt could, match up better with us. And maybe it was just, a fluke, or we didn't really know what we had. Well, in that Florida game 2 years ago, at the halftime, we had scored 35 points. And I don't know what they had, maybe 14 or so. And they decided to take Shane Matthews out in the second half to save him for the Alabama game. That was two Sugar Bowls ago. And so we thought we had some there. But again, that was no running game and just the few little plays we had. We didn't even have the ability to run the shotgun out of our base personnel group. So then we played Nebraska, and Nebraska had a whole month to prepare for us. That was not this Orange Bowl, but the Orange Bowl prior. And so we go into that game with the shotgun, with the one back and the two backs, and they had a bunch of blitzes for us. They had they put their defensive ends so wide out here in their four-man rush. You know, they had no reason to worry about the running game. You know, they were so wide out here, our tackles couldn't even kick out to them to pass protect them. You know, we needed some slip screens. We needed some running game. We needed some things that we just didn't have at the time. So really the best thing that happened to us in that game is it rained so hard we had to get back in the I formation, and we ended up running for over 200 yards in that ball game a couple years ago. So then in the off season we decided, okay, we got to get some running game with this. We knew that Charlie liked it. He liked the tempo of the game. The no huddle was a good tempo for him. He liked to keep things moving. It was good for us because it fatigued the D linemen. It didn't give the defensive coaches as much time to think about what they wanted to do in between plays. When we started substituting personnel groups, we either caught them with the wrong personnel in the game, or they had a heck of a time trying to keep up personnel group-wise with us. So we wanted to talk to some people that not only ran the shotgun, but ran some no-huddle. So we went and talked to Buffalo. Got a lot out of Buffalo as far as running some shotgun runs and just how they operate their no-huddle. And we went with Tampa Bay because, you know, Coach Weish at Cincinnati had done a bunch of no-huddle stuff. And we learned a great deal from him also. So those two staffs really helped us get a little running game. So what we ended up having this season, we said, okay, we don't want to have a lot of formations because the more you formate, the more time it takes at the line of scrimmage. The more you go in motion, the more time it takes to call it and go ahead and do it. We wanted to have as fast of a no-huddle operation as we could and as simple as we could have it. So we ended up having 3 personnel groups. We had base, which was 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, just everybody's pro set, 2 running backs. I don't know if you can barely read that or not. This thing's a little, I can't hardly tell, I'm blind. I just think this thing is hey, now I can read that now. Okay, that was our base, and of course it just looked like this. Everything was right gun or left gun. That's what I was saying earlier. We only have 1 formation. That was the Z, that was the Y, that was the X. We put our tail back here. We put our full back here. That was our quarterback. That was base. All right, then we had what we called Panther. That gave us 3 wide receivers, 0 tight ends, so the tight end came out of the ball game in Panther, 2 running backs. So all we did was just take him out. He was still the Y, but it was now a wide receiver. The Z, of course, was a wide receiver. He was a wide receiver. The big 260-pound guy left the ball game, or whatever size guy that you might have at tight end. We put in a receiver. We put in Kes McCorvey here. And immediately what that did for us was if people wanted to stay in their base defense, they start walking out linebackers to try to cover McCorvey, and we ended up having a great matchup in the passing game with the receiver versus a linebacker. Or finally people would take that linebacker out of the game and put a DB in the game. And then that would help us in the running game. So either way, it worked out pretty good for us.
How do you tell your running backs where to line up?
Okay, our running backs, they just line up their feet on the feet of the tackles, and they line up to the quarterback. The quarterback puts his toes 5 yards from the ball, toes at 5, and the running backs put their heels at 5. Excuse me, yes, their heels at 5. Their heels match up with the quarterback's toes. They're just slightly closer to the line of scrimmage than the quarterback was. So that was toes at 5 for the QB and heels at 5 for the backs. So that was Panther. That was right gun and base. Putting him there, that's just right gun and Panther. The receiver knew when the wide receiver, when he got in the game in Panther personnel, he just knew to line up splitting the difference between the Z and the tackle. Simple as that. Our Z was probably 3 or 4 yards outside the hash as a base, but we varied our splits quite a bit, so the film you'll see, he may be flexed all the way out to the numbers if we get to the film here. All right. Then we had our rifle personnel. This is the 3 wide receiver set, Panther. 1, 2, 3 receivers. He's still the Y, but now he's a receiver instead of a tight end. So there's your 3 wide receivers right there. Still right. Right gun. All right, then rifle was 4 wide receivers. That's the name of the personnel group. 0 tight ends, and then 1 running back. So we took him out of the ball game, and we ran another wide receiver in the game, put him in the weak slot. Called him the Ted. We called him the Ted because when we used to get into a 3 wide receiver or a weak slot look, we used to be in the I, take the tailback, put him in the weak slot. And we called him the T for a long time, but T and Z sounded the same, so we called him Ted. But then when we changed to getting into this stuff, the weak slot player, we just kept calling him the Ted, but he's really not the tailback. He's the replacement for the fullback is who he is. We kept the tailback in this spot here because that was the back that we felt was going to run the best routes, and he could still pass protect well enough to ask him, to do what we're going to ask him to do. So we got our very best skill people in the ball game. Well, we're going to sit back there and throw the football the majority of the time and have our best runner, pass route, best running back and route runner and ball catcher at the backfield position right here. So that's how we lined up in those 3 different personnel groups. And that's why we kept our tailback to the strong side. We used to put the fullback to the strong side, but now we put the tailback to the strong side when we're in 2 backs. Because, a lot of the things we do, we want that back stretch in the field. Well, he's the fastest guy anyway. He gets more action than that guy does in our set anyway. And this guy ends up, blocking a lot more 4 week and everything else. So really, he sits about where he ought to sit in our offense as far as how many times he's going to get the ball and what we're going to ask him to do in that set. So those are the 3 personnel groups that we had. All right, now when we start operating, we'll be in the middle of a drive, and if the first play, whatever the play is, we end up with the ball on the left hash, all Charlie would do is he'd just make a right call. All he's doing is calling the strength. He'd just say right, right, right. There's your center. We flip-flopped our line. We still do. That was our tight side, our split side here. There was our X. There was our Ted, if we happen to be in that look. There was our Y. There was our Z. There was our tailback. That's our split side, split tackle. And that was our QB right there. So that'd be rifle personnel in the game. He just made a right call. If we were calling the play 560 vertical, which I'll show you on film if we have time here. All right, 560 vertical. And I'll go over this play in detail, but just to show you how we do it, that's how we do it. 500 was the protection, vertical was the play. So the ball lands on the hash. Charlie says right, right, right. Everybody knows where to line up. He looks at Coach Eason, who's now with South Carolina, but he was our receivers coach and signal man. He would signal into Charlie 560 vertical, or whatever he would say to Charlie. That's how we did in the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, he just signaled 24, and then Charlie would look at his wristband, and 24 would say 560 vertical on it. So we quit doing some hand signals that we thought some people might be able to take from us. on there. So Charlie'd see the signal from Coach Easton. He already said right, right, right. Then he'd say Indianapolis, Indianapolis. And that just, you know, Indianapolis 500. They just knew that was one of the code names for 500. Or he'd say 500, 500. Or we had about 3 different ways of calling every protection. And then he just might go vertical. He wouldn't say it. He would just go boom like that. The receiver saw vertical. They saw vertical. The tailback behind him, he saw the route, and he heard the protection. The lineman heard the protection, and the back heard the protection. And then we would just heel kick. Of course, the center would be looking. We'd heel kick, and once we would heel kick, the center would know, you know, you could snap the ball at any time. And then the center would snap the ball, and as he snapped the ball, he would actually say hike. You know, so the center would be down there. He'd be looking. QB gives a heel kick. He's looking to make sure he knows his protections. And then he would just go hike. And that was our sound. That's the only sound we had when we went from the gun. So let's say we threw the ball to the back and he ended up over here. Well, as soon as that play was over, say we want to run the sweep the next play out of the eye. Charlie the ball was on the right half, so he'd go left, left, left. Everybody'd line up. Left. Coach Easton would send in the base personnel group. So the base guys would run in the game. There's your X. There's your Y. There's your Z. There's your tailback. There's your fullback. There's your quarterback. Excuse me, tailback. Fullback, X, Y, Z. Now that's a true tight end. That's a true fullback. Okay, there's your quarterback. If we want to run the sweep, well, 46 was our sweep. Bobby Bowden's our head coach. Bobby Bowden's favorite play is the sweep. So we called the play Bobby or Bowden or Boss or whatever. We had a bunch of different code names for it. We actually got into a numbering system where, you know, the first number didn't mean anything. We could just go 746, 746, and it was 46. Or go 346, 346, it was still 46. Or say left, 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 Bobby, Bobby. That was 46. So that's how we would do our code names, and we communicate that to the guys. Okay, now, so then we go, okay, Charlie made a left, left, left. He looks at Coach Easton. Coach Easton gave him this, like he was blowing the whistle. And all the whistle meant was Coach Bowden, when he blows a whistle, we refer to that as the $800,000 a year whistle. So that was the signal for Bobby. So Coach Easton, he'd blow the whistle, and Charlie'd go, left, 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 Bobby, Bobby. And then I forgot one other thing. He'll make a defensive recognition call. He'd either call stack, 8-man, or 50. You know, maybe if it was double eagle, he'd call double eagle, but the center called double eagle before he did. So he'd go left, 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 Bobby, Bobby. Stack, stack, down, and then on down, they'd shift. He'd shift to the eye. The backs would shift to the eye. Sit, hike, and then he'd just toss the sweep, and then we'd be off to the races. That's how we'd run, go from the split back to the I formation. Now, what Bobby meant the sweep. The left was the formation. Bobby meant the sweep, and it also meant that we were going to go on one. Okay? So they knew that we can't run 46 out of split backs. They knew we had to run it out of the eye. So they just knew which plays were out of the eye and which ones weren't. All right, toss the sweep. The ball ends up over here, and we want to run 60 bench. Well, 60 benches out of our Panther personnel. So he'd call right, right, right. We'd make the substitution. The Y came in the game. The tight end left. They always line up in the gun, always started in the gun. He'd go right, 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 60, 60, 60, 60. You know, that might be the hand signal for bench to us. Or we had about 3 hand signals for it. And then he'd go stack, stack, heel kick. The center would be looking when he was ready, hike, and he'd snap the ball, and we'd run 60 bench. Again, we talked about protection a little bit the first time. It'd be 60 protection. And then these guys are running benches, and he'd run a broken arrow, and he'd run his little deal there. But it doesn't matter what the route is. I'll go into that a little bit later. But that was 60 protection and the bench. Or he'd come to the line and he'd say, pokey, 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 pokey. All right? Stack, stack, or 8-man, 8-man. Heel kick, boom, they'd snap the ball. That's the same play. Pokey was the nickname for Marvin Farrell, who wore jersey number 60. So that was just another code name. They say Marvin, Marvin, and then we do a different hand signal for the bench. As the season, you know, the things that you worry about is, you know, is the other team going to get your code names? You say, gosh, you know, how can you do that? Aren't you worried they'll hear you say Bobby a few times and they know the sweep's coming? Well, what we found out is we'd be the line so quickly, we'd be on the line lined up, and we'd make our calls. While we're making our calls, they're trying to get their calls. You know, they're trying to, you know, after a while they quit huddling and they started using wristbands. Their coach was signaling, you know, whatever he'd signal in, 23, look at 23, that was stack cover 3 or whatever. You know, they quit huddling. And that was really, we thought it was an advantage because defensive people love to huddle. They love to get enthusiastic in there. They like to cuss each other out or whatever they like to do to get fired up. Well, now they're just standing out there on an island, you know, looking at a wristband, trying to figure out what to do, and we're ready to snap the football. You know, they're in a little bit of a rush. Plus, you start changing personnel groups from 4 wides to base in a hurry, and they're trying to match. You know, a lot of people played base defense against our base. We'd go to Panther, they'd go to a nickel. We'd go to rifle, and they'd go to a dime. So they're trying like mad to keep up the personnel groups, and it was like a Chinese fire drill for those guys the first time they had to deal with it. So as we went on, we worried less and less about code names and all that because we really didn't think they could do anything about it. And really, I wonder if it might have been, if we just took our code names and what they all meant, gave them all 3 code names for the sweep and all 3 for all our protections and all our hand signals for the different routes. If we just gave it to the defensive coordinator on Sunday and said, all right, here they are. And if he sat there and tried to teach those kids what all those code names meant in a 3-day period, they'd probably just go ballistic anyway. So, you know, we worried less and less about that happening. The biggest thing that slowed down our no-huddle was the fact that the defenses weren't getting lined up fast enough. I mean, we'd want to run a certain pass protection in a route, but if they didn't line up quick enough, then, you know, Charlie and the linemen, they didn't want to snap the ball because they didn't know who to block. They didn't know if it was a stack or an 8-man or what. So, you know, we finally had to find some kind of a hurry-up play that would keep them from not being able to line up on time. I mean, after a while, they realized, hey, if we don't line up, they don't run a play. So they started just taking their sweet time. So we learned something from Tampa Bay that we never used early in the year, but we started using once people wouldn't line up quick enough. And we called it, it was just a fire call. Now, what fire meant was it meant a certain play, and that play, our best one was called smoke, was the name of the play. It also meant hurry up. I mean, you know, instead of jogging to the ball, sprint to the ball, get lined up, heel kick and snap the thing and let's go. Don't let them get lined up. Talking about the fatigue, here's when we use this. You talk about the fatigue of the defensive linemen. They started getting a plan. They said, we've got to rest these guys or they're going to be dead by the end of the first half. So about every 4 or 5 plays, most everybody we played rolled in their second team defensive lineman. So we would just sit there and we'd wait for them. And as soon as it hit that spot, you'd see those 3 or 4 D linemen, the ball might be on the 20, and there they are on the 50, and you see them start strolling in after a play's over, and they just start getting on the field. Well, we could see them doing that from a distance, or we'd see that they were huddling, or that they weren't even getting lined up. We're standing there waiting for them to get lined up. We'd make a fire call. So here they come off the sideline. We see them coming. We call fire, 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 and so everybody'd line up in their right. He'd make a right, 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 but he'd call fire no matter what personnel group we were in. We'd make the fire call, and that was a 10-yard comeback, a flag route here, and I got a little film on that too. We got a little square in there. It was a play where we didn't have to know the assignments. It was just a down block. He'd cut whoever the contained rusher was. He'd pull for a scraping linebacker. He'd tail protected. You know, they gated the backside, and this guy actually gated the backside. The QB get the ball, and he would just run a sprint action, and we'd hit him number 1, or if they weren't lined up, you know, we'd hit him number 2, or if the corner jumped him real hard, we'd throw the flag in there behind him. But it's a great play for us, and we went about 17 for 17 to start the season because it was a good play, but also because we did it when people weren't even lined up sometimes. So the fire call made people line up quickly. And that was a big thing for us, and a great, one of the great advantages that we had trying to dictate the tempo of the ball game. Okay, another thing that we like to do was well, here's another thing that happened here too. On the fire call, what happened after a while, we'd make a fire call and we'd be ready to snap the ball, but if the referee didn't blow the whistle in play, the 25-second clock, then he would, they just sit over the ball and wait for the defense to get lined up. They said, we're not going to let you do this. We're not going to let you go that fast. So we had to learn to watch the referee put the 25-second clock in play and then call fire. So we could, but then they still weren't lined up, so we were okay. Another thing we like to do was slow substitute. We might have just ran the sweep. And we lined up in a right call. Here we are like this. We're in base. This is against the teams that like to sub. When we went base, they went base. When we went Panther, they went nickel. When we went rifle or four wides, they went 6 DBs in the ballgame. They tried to keep up personnel group with us. Well, what we would do is if we ran a play from base, but we knew the next play we were going to run a play from rifle, instead of just sending the rifle team in when the other play was over and let them see, they're watching what we're doing. They see our rifle come in, they run in the dime group. All right, well, what we started doing was we started saying, right, Indianapolis, go like this. So that was what, 560 vertical? But we didn't have the right personnel group in the game for that, but that's okay. This guy knew it, he knew it, and that Ted on the sideline and that Y receiver on the sideline, they knew it too, but they were standing over there on the sideline. These guys knew that they weren't coming off the field till we substituted for them, so they just stood there and waited for the substitution. But he knew he went in the game on that play, and he knew he went in the game, but he didn't just run off the field and panic. So we wait for the referee to run the clock. In the meantime, the defense has made their call for a base offense. They got their base defense in the game. They probably are going to assume we're going to shift to the I and run a lot of our I formation package, is what we mostly did out of the base. Well, they would, so they get their call made, and then we'd wait till about 20 seconds, 18 seconds left on the clock, and then we'd just tell those guys to go, and the rifle team would sprint on the field and get here, and those two guys left the field. And then, Charlie would just call, stack, or whatever the defense was, and then when everybody was set, he just heel kicked, and we snapped the ball. Everybody already knew the play. So we ended up running a full wide receiver play against a base defense, and they couldn't get the matchups in the game that they wanted. We were playing Nebraska 2 years ago, and it was vice versa. We started out in the gun, and we were moving down the field, and they were blitzing the daylights out of us. And I talked about protections earlier in the day. We decided, hey, if they're going to blitz the crap out of us, let's get into a maximum protection. But instead of just letting them see us run the base personnel in the group in the game, we just lined up in rifle, and we made a max protection call, which was our gold call, which was our max. We said gold, and we ran XQ or whatever the play was, where that X did that, and the back in here ran out in the flat. We ran the post here one-on-one, but the rifle team stayed in the game, and they had made their call. They're going to blitz the rifle. So they got their blitz called. We let the clock run down to about 20 or so, and then we just sprinted our base team in the game. We took him out of the game, put the tight end in, put the fullback in, and we just went ahead and maxed up the blitz, and and this guy's out of there, and that guy's out of there. And then they had no safety help. We ended up hitting Vanover for the first touchdown in the ball game, but we ended up getting them in a call that they wanted against rifle, but we ran our base in the game and ended up doing pretty well with that. So, the slow substitution was good for us. Some of the advantages, that we had, just as I kind of go along with this thing, linemen love it. You don't have to worry about huddling. The thing those linemen hate is running, get up there and standing just perfect the way you want them, or doing this. And how much time do you spend in a practice telling them to line up straight in the huddle, or the backs and the receivers in the wrong spot? And then we flip-flop our line. So we got the split guard here and the split tackle there and the tight guard there and the tight tackle there, and we break, and they got to go in each direction, and they're going back and forth, and, you know, it takes a lot of work. Plus, you know, then when you break the huddle, the number one, when Coach Bowden has his call-in show, what's the number one gripe the fans have? Why do the linemen just walk to the line of scrimmage? How come they don't sprint up to the line and look good and all that kind of stuff? Well, they don't have to worry about it anymore. Offensive linemen, instead of having to do that, ready, break, turn around, sprint to the line, get set, and do all that junk, you know, Charlie just makes a right call, and they just line up and right and just kind of hang out and wait to hear what's going on. They're just resting the whole time. And then after we get into a deal where we'll heel kick, and they'll get in a preset position, might be like that, where the defensive lineman, he's in a preset position like this. He ends up sitting down there in that three-point stance for a lot longer than he'd like to be. Well, our guys are relaxing, so the offensive line liked it. Another advantage that we felt we had was in practice. When you practice in no huddle, you're going to get a lot more reps. We just got a ton more reps. All we did all week long was just, well, I take that back. On Mondays we huddled. On Tuesdays we huddled. Wednesday, all day Wednesday and all day Thursday we would no huddle. And but we got a lot more reps in that way by working it that way. So that was another advantage. Another thing that we did that we really liked was our freeze play, and most of it was in this set, our Panther. Anybody who's done a lot of one-back or studied the one-back, one of their principles is just, you know, checking how many defenders are in the box, and if there's 6 in the box, you run. If there's 7 in the box, you pass. Well, we're doing the same thing, only instead of a tight end and a back, we got 2 backs. But we still have 3 receivers detached from this running set right here, from that running box. And so the defense has got to line up. If they would line up in a 2-deep type look, if they wanted to keep 7 in the box with this Sam sitting right there, then this guy, they'd end up leaving what? An uncovered. People talking about throwing to their uncovereds. And we would do the same. But if they wanted to keep a 2-deep look, they had to have somebody out on him. And usually it'd be this linebacker would walk himself out of the box and get in a position to try to play this guy. Well, 2 things good happened for us. One was Kes McCorvey was a heck of a lot better than that guy running routes, than that guy could defend. Number 2, you might pull out, I mean, even with our defense, that was Marvin Jones. We ended up pulling Marvin Jones out of the running box half the time. And you had some little receiver in there nipping at his heels, trying to cut him and all that junk. And he wasn't in there playing football like he should have been. But if you end up getting 6 in the box, well, we got 6 blockers. We got our 5 linemen plus either one of these backs. If we shift it to the eye, you know, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus our 6th blocker right there. And if they go 6 in the box, that's good odds for us running the football. If they put this guy back in the box, then that means they probably covered this guy up with a strong safety, moved your free safety here, and then they probably end up playing some kind of a 3-deep. Well, when they did that, we were outnumbered in the running game, but we were in great shape in our quick passing game, our stops, our benches, our slants, just any 3-step type drop plays that you like to run became real good for us. But if you just come to the line of scrimmage and you try to do that type of offense, they can disguise you pretty good. But what we would do is we would use our freeze play, and all our freeze play was this. We'd be in the shotgun, and we'd give some code name that meant freeze play. He'd go right, 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 freeze play, freeze play. Then he'd go down. Say it, hike! And then if they jumped, then we'd just pull the ball and get the penalty. If they didn't jump, then we for sure knew what they were doing. If they were trying to disguise a blitz, by the time you say down, set, hike, buddy, you knew they were going to blitz because they'd be on the line of scrimmage getting ready to come. Or if they were going to shift from a 2-deep to a 3-deep, you would see it happening into your cadence. Most defenses wait till you start your cadence to stem. If you wanted to run the ball to a 1 technique, but when you said down, every time you said down, they stemmed to a 3 and moved him down to a 1, you know, then if you just went to the line of scrimmage and called your play, you might think you have 6 in the box, and by the time you snap the ball, they got 7 in the box in a blitz. Or by the time you snap the ball, that guy shifted from a 1 to a 3 technique. So you're wrong half the time. Because what you see is not what you get, especially with the people we played. But if you go down, set, hike, you know, in your cadence, they go true to what they're going to play. So that's one more way to help your quarterback identify the defense he's about to see. So we'd say down, set, hike, and if they ended up rolling this Sam linebacker back in here and inverting to some kind of 3D, we knew we were outnumbered in the run, so we just throw the football. If we said down, set, hike, and they stayed in the 2 deep and had this Sam linebacker walk out, we had 6 in the box, we're going to go ahead and run the football. So it looks something like this, and we ran a lot of isolation plays. We ran ISO strong and ISO weak, or we had the passing game with it. So what we'd signal to Charlie, he'd call right, 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 and then Coach Eason might go like this. That meant Tarzan, because Tarzan was strong ISO, Jane was weak ISO, and then he'd just cross his feet saying either or. So he'd go like this to Charlie, and Charlie knew he was going to either or run or pass. And he was going to run, we might run to a 1 technique, we might run to the 3 technique, whatever play we might have had. So Charlie, all he would do is he'd say freeze play, down, set, hike. They jumped, we pulled the ball. It was it was a good way of controlling the cadence. If every time you shift to the eye, you go on 1, the defense is going to jump when you go on 1. But if they know you got a freeze play, then they got to wait. They're not sure. So you helped your cadence, you helped your get off on the ball, and then you also, the quarterback knew what he had. If he saw 6 in the box and the 1 technique was there, he'd say down. He'd start out down, said hike. They don't jump. The 1 technique's there. He'd go Jane. I think Jane was like this or something like that. He'd say Jane, hike, and then we'd run the weak side ISO. Or if the 1 technique was there, he'd go down, set, hike, Tarzan, hike, and then we'd run the isolation there. Or if there was 7 in the box, he might just go whatever I can't even remember what we had. He'd go 82, which might be our slant. 80 was the protection, 2 was that deal. So really the quarterback was the only guy that knew the play. The other kids didn't know the play. All they knew was freeze play. All freeze play meant to them was you just line up there and don't you move. And center, you're the only guy that'll pull the ball if you see one of these inside techniques get in the neutral zone. But no one else knew the play. So they had no reason to jump offside. All they knew was don't jump. And then the first they ever heard of the either or, they're not going to the line thinking, is this Tarzan, Jane, or 80 game? They're not thinking anything. They just go to the line, don't think anything. Then the quarterback says Jane or Tarzan or whatever our code names might be for whatever play. So the freeze play was very valuable to us in a lot of big ball games. It really not only just stretching the defense by flexing out your Y and going to 4 wides and stretching out your number 2 receiver there, that helps you define blitzes for the quarterback. But going with a freeze play also helps define what the defense is going to do for your quarterback. And it'll give you an opportunity to get into the right play at the right time. Instead of guessing, you're pretty much assured of what you got. Hey, we did the same thing out of the eye. We might have run the sweep against this and run the sprint draw against this defense and max protection and throw the post versus a blitz. You can still use your freeze play for that. Down, set, hike. If by the time you say hike, he sees blitz, he'll audible to the max protect. If he sees they're in a stack, he might run the sweep. If he sees they're in a 50 defense, he might run the sprint draw. I mean, he's calling the plays, but you've already told him what you want to call it against. I mean, your sprint draw, you might say, boy, I sure wish we had the sweep on against that stack. But if they're in a 50, I wish we had the sprint draw on. But if they blitz us, boy, it'd be great to max it up and hit Van over for a touchdown or something. So instead of just guessing, you'd say down, set, hike, and you do it. But the thing about the no huddle is we're on the line of scrimmage with 25 seconds on the clock saying down, set, hike. By the time we say hike, Charlie's got another 18 seconds to make a decision. Now, if you get in the huddle and do this, what happens? You call you take too long calling the play. They break the huddle. They're jogged to the line. No one gets set. The center gets set. Then the guard gets his feet just right. And then the tackle gets his feet just right. and then he says down, set, hike, and then you got about 4 seconds left for him to try to change the play. You know, it's too fast, and the kid doesn't have enough time to make that kind of decision. So with the no huddle, at least we get to the line in a hurry and we're able to do that. This year we're thinking about just going to the line of scrimmage as fast as we can, just line up, heel kick, and when we heel kick, the defense is figuring, hey, they're ready to snap the ball, so they line up, and then look to the coach, and we might, you know, I might be upstairs looking at the defense, and then I might just call play after we've heel kicked it, and he'll look for the play after the heel kick. You know, we might be able to call plays after we heel kick, and they line up in what they want to line up in. So we're thinking about messing around with that a little bit too. So by using the no huddle, you know, you get people off balance. Defensive coaches, they're not used to calling plays that fast. They're not, you know, most teams don't no huddle, so they're spending all week preparing on the no huddle. They might, for the first time in their life, start typing up wristband. I mean, we played some teams, every kid on the team, defensive team, had a wristband, and the coach was signaling the number, and they're all just reading the numbers. They're not used to doing that. The coaches aren't used to doing that. You know, they're trying to work substitutions as fast as they can. You know, our linemen have a lot better chance to rest than their defensive linemen do. You got to have some skilled kids, you know, that if you're going to throw it as much as we did in it, part of our philosophy, again, was to let's blow them up. Let's get them tired. You know, if you start the game and you run the sweep or the sprint draw or an ISO, I don't care who you're playing. There's enough emotion there to have an unbelievable explosion on the first play of the game. But if those guys are tired, or they're used to being in a pass rushing mode, down after down after down, you know, they get to where, you know, they're not thinking run as much. Even though you shift to the eye, they're still used to rushing the passer. They're a little bit tired, and you got a better chance to get some movement. And we sell our kids. See, the first time you live through a no-huddle scrimmage, the first time we lived through it, and our defense did, I mean, and it's in the middle of August in Florida, those kids were dead. I mean, I'll never forget the last play of a drive. Charlie was just, he looked like a drunk running around back there, and guys walking to try to get him. They were so exhausted. And he threw a ball out there to Kes McCorvey, and Kes McCorvey was washed, and he literally walked the last 10 yards, and all the DBs were, everybody just was exhausted at the end of that scrimmage. And you know, so everybody gets tired. But the thing is, you know, we know our deal was, hey, we know how tired we're going to be. That defense has no earthly idea how tired they're going to get. And we just preached them on, you know, telling them how tired, you know, tell the defense how tired you are. This is killing me, you know, this no huddle's killing me, you know. But it really would, it was a psychological advantage for us, and we really got a lot out of it. The kids loved it. They got to call their own code names. They made up all kinds of crazy stuff. They made up a bunch of signals for Coach Eason to do on national TV to look like an idiot, and he'd make the signal, and then Charlie'd act like he didn't get it and make him do it again. And so, I mean, they had fun, and we had fun, and the morale of the whole offense picked up. The coaching staff morale picked up. We were so used to doing the same thing over and over and over, and then we finally, you know, got a little creative, and we didn't really run a whole lot of different plays than we ran from right here. The biggest difference, you know, and not everybody's a pro set team, but this is what we were forever. We're in that set or in the eye. Of course, we were here. And we'd run all our plays. Dip. You know, whatever I was talking about before. I mean, we'd run it out of that set. We'd run takeoffs and verticals out of this set. We'd actually have this back try to stretch the field from there. Or maybe we'd get real sneaky and put the tailback right there and let him go there. You know, or we'd get sneaky and put this 260-pounder out there. You know, all we did was instead of putting that guy that was not your best route runner, we put an athlete in there, flexed him out to define the defense, and put a legitimate speed guy that could split the middle of a two-deep. That guy didn't scare anybody in a two-deep, but that guy did. All right, we took this guy out of the ball game. We took the full, it used to be our tailback, but we made him the fullback, then we took him out of the game, we put another guy that was dangerous there. So we had 4 of our most dangerous receivers in the game. They had to try to match up. And then instead of the one back being the fullback, we made it the tailback. We had our 5 most dangerous weapons on offense running the same plays we'd always run. We learned about, we had to learn some more about one-back protection because we were always a 2-back protection team. And we became legitimate protecting those types of things. And then we started dictating the tempo of the game. We'd go fast, we'd go slow. We'd change personnel groups on them. Another thing we did called the Stampede. Stampede was a 5-play series where we changed the personnel group every time. We might have a base play, you know, then a rifle play, then a Panther play, then go back to base, then go rifle. But we'd memorize 5 plays in a row. They knew we had a session in the practice. By about Wednesday, we had our Stampede. We'd practice it Wednesday and Thursday, and they would have to memorize what to do. But as it turned out, you know, Charlie had a wristband, so he had the Stampede on his wristband. You know, it said Stampede 1. That was, and he knew the 5 plays. And how the line learned it is the tight tackle learned the first play, the tight guard learned the second play, the center learned the third, he learned the 4th play, he learned the 5th play. So those kids just learned 1 play, and you know, they got a kick out of that. They just said, you know, everybody knew whose play was next, and they told the lineman what the play was. And then our skill guys, if we were in rifle, the second play might be base. So those kids on base were on the sideline anyway. We take our first tailback out of the game and run in the second team tailback and the fullback. So they didn't have to memorize as much as you might think. You know, the X and the Z were the guys that had to memorize the most, and if they got in trouble, you know, they would just ask Charlie, and Charlie would tell them what the play is. Or if the Y was in the game and Kes McCorvey came in the game, he just told the Z what the play was, because he was coming, this guy was coming off the bench. So we'd run a Stampede. So at any moment, we'd be in our normal no huddle, which was fast, but not as fast as you could go. But if we said Stampede 1, men, we would start the drive with a Stampede 1. Boom, you know, we'd go 5 plays in a row and change personnel groups every time, and already know what the plays were, be lined up and be ready to snap the football. So we had, you know, and those plays were nothing new. So we changed the tempo of the game by doing those kind of things. We had the fire call to get them to line up. We used the freeze plays to identify the defense to get people to jump off sides. And we really ran the same things we've always run at Florida State. We got one formation, in my opinion. It's right gun or left gun. And the only difference is if a different personnel group's in there, they may just flex out a little bit, but it's the same dang formation. And that's kind of the beauty for the quarterback. I mean, here's a quarterback. You know, if teams line up like this sometimes, well, that's one formation. And then if you line up like this, like the one, we were doing a lot of one-back stuff, you're getting trips like this. And the defense will line up another way, and then you line up in doubles with the tight end in the boundary, and the defense would line up a different way, and then you line up with the tight end to the field, and in the slot in the boundary. You do all those different looks, all those different formations, and buddy, it looks different. I'm telling you, for that quarterback every time. The guy gets confused because defenses in high school and college play field defenses. If they're going to play eagle to the field, well, then the eagle here is to the weak side, but the eagle here is to the strong side, but the eagle here is to the weak side. If they flip around, the eagle's to the strong side. So they got all these different looks to look at, but when you do it the way we did it, and maybe it's too simple, I don't know. We didn't want to confuse ourselves. When we lined up like this, and they lined up, well, when we took this guy and flexed him out, nothing really changed a whole lot. I mean, he moved out a little bit. He walked out here, is all we do. You know, he'd walk out a little bit, but it looked the same for the quarterback. He knew the defense he was looking at. The defense didn't change. But if they blitzed, it sure changed, you know. This guy'd have to cheat over here to cover on this blitz, or he'd have to cheat over here to cover on this blitz, and it helped define everything for the kid. The thing we saw the most in the 4 wides, I'm getting real sloppy, but if you get a 2 deep, and you line up like that, it's going to look something like this to the kid. But if you flex him out, he just walks out a little bit. You flex him out, he just walks out there a little bit. I mean, it's the same thing to your quarterback. He didn't have to learn a whole bunch of different things. And it just helped you teach. Less things he had to learn, less defenses he had to react to. He knew where they lined up. He knew their responsibilities. He knew what a blitz looked like before it came. He knew where his hots were, you know, and all that stuff became real easy for us. Does anybody have a question on how we just lined up the gun, how we changed personnel groups or anything like that? If not, I'm going to go into a couple of things that we did play-wise, and I'll show you some of the stuff we got on film here. And if anybody wants to stick around at the end and look at some of the trick plays, I got a bunch of trick plays on the end of the reel that I had from another clinic. I'll show you guys those too if you want to. I'll just explain a couple of these shotgun plays. 560 vertical I was talking about. Okay, what vertical meant was 4 guys were going to streak. 4 guys are going to streak. 1, 2, 3, 4. And these guys were going to they were going to hit landmarks. All right, we were going to divide the field into, 4 ways. We're going to stretch it as wide as we could stretch it. He'd get 5 to 6 yards from the sideline. He'd be right on the high school hash. He'd be right on the high school hash. He'd be 5 to 6 yards from the sideline. Okay? He'd be up 5 yards, stick, and break out in the flat at 5 yards. We'd be in their 500 protection here. Okay, what we saw the most here, and you'll see on the film, about 80% of the time we saw 2 deep, a guy walked out there, a middle linebacker, and a guy walked out there. The 4-man rush. That's what we saw the majority of everybody we played. All right? He'd stay on the hash no matter what. If it was zone, he was going to hit his landmark. If it was zone, he was going to hit his landmark. If it was man coverage, the wide receivers would then run a takeoff, which all that meant, vertical meant hit your landmarks, takeoff meant attack the technique, try to beat the man coverage. But in this look, it's a zone look. All right, he had the read. If there was a man on or near the hash, when he got to 8 to 10 yards, he'd release and get to this spot here. If there's a man on or near the hash, he'd make a little, what we called a stick move, and then he bent it in there. We called that a broken arrow. That was a broken arrow for him, and that was a 5-yard out route, 5 yards out. So basically in this look, the quarterback's read, first of all, he had to know if he was hot. Well, he'd come to the line and he'd say, Indianapolis, Indianapolis, and he'd go vertical, vertical. He'd go stack, stack, just a 3-man look. A 4-3 look was a stack look. Then he'd heel kick, center'd say hike. Well, he knew that we could block these guys here, him there. If that guy came, the back would block him. And if this guy came, then they had one more guy than we could block. We had no back here. So he knew he had to throw hot here on a blitz. That guy might run a stop, he might run a quick slant, he might run a quick out. His hots would change week by week. But he knew, this guy knew when the QB said stack, that guy came, he was hot. So he'd call stack, stack, heel kick, the center would snap the ball, the QB would make sure the blitz wasn't coming. If it wasn't coming, then he'd progress. And that's how I teach him. You look for your hots. If your hots aren't there, you go to your progression. Number 1, number 2, number 3 right there. The only way they could stop this kid, in my opinion, was if that Sam really walled him off real good, and they'd start, you see on the film, they'll start doing that. And then the only way they could stop this guy hitting the seam here is if this cornerback does a good job of sinking. Well, if he sinks and he goes here, then what do you got right here? You got your back all by himself. We hit Warwick Dunn a bunch of times on that little deal there and got a lot of yards out of it. Especially at Florida, we ran the same type of play, scored a touchdown, but our last touchdown of the game. And against Nebraska on our last drive, we hit him twice for big yards. We were calling 560 vertical. Okay? You don't see 3 deep really against it. We don't, but you might. If you saw 3 deep, you got a safety in the middle, corner, corner, and basically the QB is looking to clear these guys out of there These guys hit the hash, he hits the hash. Now there's no one on or near the hash, so he stays on the hash. He's still here. And then we're just reading that safety. If he cheats that way, we'll try to hit him in the seam. If he cheats that way, we'll try to hit him in the seam. If he stays deep middle, we'll try to step one way and get him to move and throw the other way, that type of thing. And then, he was always our outlet for us right there. If it was man coverage, we may throw the bomb outside, but if it was man, we might have had a blitz here too. We might be throwing, the hot. So versus any kind of man, if it was a man with a press man and no help behind, the hot throw, they may just throw the fade. But more than likely, we had to throw the hot throw on any of the 5 and 6 man blitzes right there. And that's real brief on that. And I'm going to kind of go over these quickly so I can show you the film. We're already past the time, but the next play I got, well, we got a play where we run the benches off of here, and then we run what we call a choice route here. So it looks like vertical, and then we run these choice routes, and then instead of the back on the out route, the back just ran his wide flare or a scat route. And all we did was, after we ran a lot of verticals, people just started sinking corners on us and not giving us anything. So we started running benches. Like in this look, if that corner sank out of a 2-deep look or even a 3-deep look, we were going to hit the bench. If there was a flat player here, whether it was a strong safety or whoever, he could, if it was soft corner, he could stop it by buzzing the flat. Well, the wider he got, the wider we would get on our choice route. So basically, we were replacing the area where the strong safety left. The wider he went, the wider we would want to get. We were trying to get 1 yard inside the flat player. Same thing here. We might have a rover here or whoever the corner. If he was soft, we might hit the bench, number 1. The flat player ran out there, and he'd set it down right where he left. He'd be number 2. Of course, you always had a chance, to work the ball to him if you needed to. So, that's what it was. It was a complement off of the vertical play. And we did the same thing off of 3 wide receivers type of deal. I'll show you that. I won't. The bench, we started with our outside foot back, and we took 6 steps. So I guess it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's not right. Outside foot back. If the quarterback's there, here's the outside foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'd roll it out, trying to get to about 10 yards, 10 to 12 yards. It was a speed cut for us on both sides. The choice route was a 10-yard route. We'll get back to the choice a little bit later, too. Another route, I'll explain them a little more in detail when we look at the film. Smash starts out like vertical again. Okay? He'll stop at 6, he'll stop at 6, he goes 8 to 10, he runs a flag. He goes 8 to 10, instead of running his broken arrow or his vertical, now he runs a flag. So this receiver could run a choice. He could run the choice, he could run the flag, he could run the broken arrow, he could stay vertical. And we got him to the same junction point where he could go either way, and that half-field safety wasn't quite sure what the guy was going to do. And that receiver he just ran vertical. I mean, that tailback ran vertical. So he was about 8 to 10 running the flag. And really, I think at the end of the year, he might have got as deep as 14 yards sometimes. He kind of got a little carried away with his depth. We were looking at about 8 to 10, maybe closer to 10 to 12 on the flag routes. These guys ran the stop routes. All right, now, just for example, on the hot, if we had that blitz instead of this kid being hot, well, that 6-yard stop is about as good of a hot route as you can get. That was just a built-in hot for that play. So that guy was actually hot, weak side, on the blitz. This guy just, he knew on that play there's no hot for you. The hot is him. So, it was simple as that on that deal. But that was a smash. We were just reading the corners. If the corner played real hard, we'd hit the flag. If the corner tried to sink, we'd hit him. If it happened to be 3 deep where he was soft and the flat player ran out there to take that away, then he was supposed to slide into the next lane. But we rarely saw 3 deep versus 4 wides because they didn't like us to run vertical against it. and they didn't like us to run this play against it. And this was just the choice route. The other one was we ran benches and choices inside. We called that Bobcat. B for the benches and C for the choices. This is just choice. Outside receivers ran a choice route at 10 yards. They'd stem inside and they'd see this corner. That corner sank. He knew the flat player was the next guy inside. So in 3 deep, it was beautiful. He sank. He knew he was the flat player. He was out in the flat right now. He was out in the flat right now, gaining ground about 3 yards deep. They were 10 yards deep. He'd get vertical. Well, this guy was out in the flat. He was playing curl flat, so if he widened, again, we just set it down right inside of him. If he stayed in there, we ran way inside of him. We went ahead and got way inside there. But we knew if he was holding off this, there was nobody there, so it was just an easy curl flat read. Same thing over here with the Willie. If the Willie widened with him, there was a hole right there. And if the Willie held it off, we were going to hit the guy right there. In 2 deep, we were basically reading the corner as the flat player and working right there. We'd do the same play out of 60. We'd put the fullback, take him out of the game. We'd just flare the fullback. Then it was 60 choice. 560 choice with him. It was 60 choice with him right there. We'd actually put the tight end in the game. A lot of times when we went base personnel, they'd play 3 deep. Well, the best play we got is a curl flat against 3 deep. So we'd get in base, they'd line up in 3 deep, and we'd just run him there. We'd run him there, and we'd get a curl flat all day long against teams that would play cover 3 against base personnel. So that was a real good play for us too. And the last one I'll show you before I turn on the film was the smoke. And I talked about that before. 10 yards, if it was soft corner, he drove right back to the quarterback. Straight down. Not to the quarterback, but straight down the stem. If somebody played him relatively tight on the outside, he came inside. If somebody played him relatively tight from the inside, he'd run to the outside. That was all he had to do on that. But if he was given cushion, I'm probably in the way again. I'm leaning on this thing. If they had cushion at all, he just came straight back down. But any tight coverage, he'd go opposite of the coverage. Again, he was 10 to 12. I think he got deeper on the film, as you'll see, and he ran the flag route again. If they jumped all over that, that thing was coming open. If we were in this set, backer, maybe a backer sitting there, 3 deep, safety, safety. All right, this tackle protected that gap. This guard pulled for any kind of scraping linebackers. He would cut the contained man. He'd tail protect here and here and here, and this guy'd sit right here. Quarterback caught the ball, lost about 2 to 3 yards, sprinting full speed, looking to hit him number 1 and him number 2. Again, smoke. This play was smoke. That was one of our number 1 fire calls. That was one of those plays you could call. Didn't matter how they lined up, you could run this thing. Okay? So that was that. If we happened to be in rifle, we might call fire and rifle was in the game. Well, that guy, he just ran a quick cross there, and this guy always ran a deep little square in across the back. If the tight end happened to be in the game, then the tight end just lined up here, and he ran his route. He ran the route from there. So we could run the smoke in any personnel group we wanted to, and make a fire call in any personnel group we wanted to do. And I'll just stop there on the overhead, and I'll show you some of this on film. We got some pretty good looks at it. Vertical. See if I can coordinate this thing. All right. Got a tricky machine here. All right, here's your umbrella look. All right, you got kind of a 2 deep shell here, and the quarterback knew that he was going to look for his hot number 1. Here's his hot. Boy, this thing is tricky. That was his hot. He didn't come. He's got a progression. Number 1, number 2, number 3 is the back. Okay, 2 is the Z. Yeah, the number 1 is the Y, number 2 is the Z, and number 3 is the back out in the flat. But you can see right here, this guy's the guy's in a bind right here defensively. He has got to wall off this guy. There's going to be a nice throwing lane, and Charlie does a good job of hitting it. Now, if he starts walling him off, you can see where the back's going to start coming open. If the corner sinks, which he does here, taking away number 2 receiver. So no blitz. Number 1 is the broken arrow. We got that from behind too. Number 2 is a Z, and the back is number 3.
What happens if it's quarter halves here?
Well, quarter halves, what's going to happen, the read's going to be the same for the QB because it's going to look like the 2 deep shell, right?
Yeah.
Well, how are they going to play it? Quarter halves, when number 2,
safety over the top of number 2 there.
all right, but he's going to be on him, but I mean, how tight's he going to be? I mean, he's not going to undercut the hard slant that we're making, or they haven't, you know, to us. And they still got to have that linebacker walked out has got to help with the broken arrow. You know, I don't think that strong safety can take him by himself. You know, he'll be behind him and he'll make the tackle. And then now the other corner, the corner's going to sink. And then, you know, really all you got is you got a stretch on that Sam linebacker, that linebacker that's walked out. If he doesn't wall off the broken arrow, we think we can hit it.
And all 3 of them.
Yeah, they all got a shot.
Is there
Of course,
any reason why he go the other side? Because the other's number 2.
why he wouldn't throw the other side?
Why he would? Would he ever?
No, we won't even throw it. We will not, on a 2 deep look, we're not going to ever throw it to the other guy. But now in 3 deep, he may catch it up the seam if the safety cheats to the strong side. So he's got to hit his landmark. But you know, this next picture will basically be the same look.
Would that quarter half put you in a hot call?
In a,
Backside cover?
say again,
And that quarter half coverage, would it put you in a hot call or that?
a hot call?
The Willie coming on the side?
Yeah, if the Willie came, yeah.
But your backside,
Weak side slot would be hot. Like for example, in this look, where am I? You know, he'd blitz, and then we'd throw a little quick out or something to him right there.
You still didn't cover him?
Yeah, we have uncovered rule in all of our passes, and in our running game too, for that matter. All right, again, you know, a lot of people played this shell. They didn't want to play. This is quarter halves, but it's quarters across the board, because once you put a guy in the weak slot, you know, they start playing quarters across the board. But I mean, you know, he still can't stop that broken arrow there, I don't think. And maybe, you know, it's maybe more of a 2 sink, but even in the quarter halves, we didn't get real tight coverage in there. But
you flatten the route out in front of the guy a little bit too on that.
sure, you know, the tighter the coverage, the flatter the kid's going to go. I mean, he'll make it a square in if he has to. Now here's a shot. Finally, this guy finally said, I got to wall off this guy. They're killing us. You know, so then we go here. And again, you know, this is number 2, but look how deep this guy is. Sinking. You know, so there you go.
How deep is the break-off point there for the broken arrow?
It's supposed to be about 10 yards. We want all those junctions on the flag, the broken arrow, the choice. We want it all to be around 10 yards. But, you know, the kid's got to use his judgment. He's got to possibly go over the top of the defender, or he may have to slip underneath the defender. We have more luck when he goes over the top. When he goes over the top, he stays wide. He's in the sweet spot of the 2 deep, and if they wall him off, then we get this. But if he slips underneath, sometimes he gets all the way across the field too soon, and it's just not where we want him. We'd rather him go over the top of that guy. And if the guy's that deep with him, then you know the back's going to be open. All right, here's Nebraska playing basically the same type. See, there's kids slipping underneath it. McCorvey's our Y, or this guy right here. Watch him slip underneath it. You know, he'd be better off if going over the top, and at least we know this guy's completely out of the play. He's turned his back completely to him. Now he kind of opens his eyes to it and has a chance, but you know, either way, they're not in real good shape. Now this guy, number 48, he's their run stopper, but he's matched up on him. Now this is a zone, but later on you'll see him in man coverage. They're going to keep one linebacker in the game, and your back's going to be the best matchup. All right, I'll put this one. This is against a 2-deep man under, and Charlie ends up running the ball here, which he would do a lot versus man under. People didn't run much man under against Charlie. But if you look back at it and you go to the progression of a 2-deep look, broken arrow number 1, well, in the NFL that guy's open. Really. You know, Charlie wasn't going to try to squeeze it, which is fine. Number 2, he sank, no problem. Now look at number 3 though. And a better athlete than him versus him. If he'd have hit him on the run, that guy's off to the races too. I bet you the back would have got more yards than Charlie ended up running for. You know, so I don't think, I mean, Charlie would make runs like that, but he didn't have to some of the time. He could have given it to the back easily. I mean, after a while, he got conditioned to man under. He knew he could be off to the races if he wanted to. Okay, this is more of a 3-deep look, but they show 2-deep, and then you see how you know, they walk into the 3-deep real late. You can see the safety up top on the hash. Now, if Charlie saw that from the pre-snap, you know, he might have taken a shot. You can see where this guy has a chance in a 3-deep, you know, hitting that crease. And Charlie just ended up, you know, hitting Kaiser in there and stuck it in there. But, you know, here's a picture of picking up the blitz. If you were there when I was talking about 6-man protection a little bit, here's the inside 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 down linemen and the 2 inside backers. We stick a hat on every one of them, and you know, we don't have a hot situation there. The center's working away from the back, and the back's taking the linebacker coming his way. Center's working back. There's your back taking him right there.
Who thought critical was coming inside the hash?
McCorvey? McCorvey was really wrong there on the 3-deep look. If he thought it was 3-deep, he should have stayed on the hash and stayed wide to really stretch him. But he bent it inside because he pre-snap it was 2, and he still thought that guy was on the hash. You know, he didn't think him as a flat player. He was so deep. So he ran the broken arrow anyway, which he really, if he knew it was 3-deep, he'd have stayed on the hash and kept it wide. Sure. But he didn't really realize that guy was inverted. This was early in the year, and he had really not seen that read before. We didn't coach that up very good. Okay, he ends up, really they end up going to 3-deep here again. And Kez, the guy's so deep, I mean, cripes to Kez, that's a 2-deep safety. Guy's 15 yards deep, so he's still going to run the broken arrow. You know, we end up hitting it. But that is a 3-deep coverage. It's just so deep, they're in trouble. But everybody, you know, everybody's got a, the Y's got a chance and the back's got a chance. They're so deep on the takeoffs, it's almost worthless trying to throw it out there. But that's when we started running this Bobcat play, which was the benches on the outside. Just visualize a bench right here and a choice right here. We'll hit the bench right there. But if the flat player runs out there underneath the bench, then this kid can set it down on a choice. Same thing here. See him running out there? He might take the bench away, but then Kez, you know, he would just sit it down in the hole right there, look for the football. So the Bobcat play, which was benches outside and choices inside, really complemented the play. Now, when you got a QB that knows what he's doing, you can call this play on 1st and 10. We call this a bunch on 1st and 10. You don't ever think about throwing 4 verticals on 1st and 10. But it became a broken arrow tailback play the way people lined up, and I had confidence that Charlie was going to make the right decision. Wasn't going to just throw it up for grabs. All right, here's a little man under with a free safety. You know, he went right to his tailback. That was the last drive of the game, you know, when we had to have it to win the whole ball of wax. Good thing Trev Alberts was tired by then. We should have stayed in the shotgun the whole game and just got Alberts tired. Took till about this drive before he ran out of gas. All right, all 60 takeoff is now we're in Panther personnel. We got our 2 backs in the game instead of 1. You know, we now can block some other blitzes, and now takeoff means that these guys are going to beat the technique on top of him, unless he has a hard corner, which this is. He turns it into a fade. And he's still got a broken arrow here, but Charlie sees a two-deep look here. It's the same read versus two-deep. Broken arrow, he might have had, but he went number one. He thought the guy walled it off. He looked at number two. He thought he had a shot to hit him in the fade, and he ended up throwing it there. And you could see what number three would have been here. Still would have had a chance at number three at the back, running the same route there. Only thing 60 takeoff did is if the team was going to blitz us a lot, instead of us throwing hot to the Ted, which was the weak slot, the fullback could sit in there and block the blitz, and we could throw the ball down the field, try to get a touchdown instead of a hot throw. This was that Bobcat play, which was the benches on the outside and the choice route by the inside receivers. Up top, you can see the soft corner. Over here, he's got a hard corner. He didn't even want to mess with that. He's got a soft, possible soft look here. If this flat player ran underneath it, then you can see McCorvey here could run a little choice. And he's just going to sit it down right there where he was. If he sprinted out, McCorvey would be right there waiting on it. Plus, we got the back, you know, stretching it too pretty good. Trying to choice either side. If he has a hard corner look one side and soft the other, he's going to look to throw the bench first. He's working outside in. If he has hard corners on both sides, then he's basically going to work. He may hit the fade like up top. Versus two deep, I want him working up top. He may hit the fade, but not likely. That corner sinks, he takes away the fade. That means you got a guy here trying to play the choice and the scat. That's why we scat the back there. Because even if this guy ran vertical, if he thought it was hard corner and the corner sank with him, now you got one guy here trying to play the choice and the wide flare there. Now versus man under on the choice, you'll see right here, the receiver starts to run his choice route, and if the defender is in his inside hip trailing him, he'll just bounce to the outside. Watch Fryer here. He starts to come around the top, but it's man coverage, and he bounces to the outside, which is a pretty decent job of running that route, that choice route. We'll see a lot more choice routes. 60 bench, all that is just 60 protection, running the benches. Now I put the Y on an automatic broken arrow in case it's too deep. He'll be ready to split the middle of a too deep. But we got soft corners. I want to work the weak. I want to work the shortest throw if possible. He's there, no problem. 1, 2, 3, fire for the quarterback. No hitch stepping. All right, talking about how you can define a defense a little bit. You got a little blitz right here. Where's the free safety? Free safety's not standing in the middle of the field anymore. He's walked over this guy, so we know the blitz is coming. We know the blitz is coming. This is a double eagle, so everybody's covered. The back ends up weak back on the this eagle backer, and this back over here is actually double reading from here to here. He doesn't come, and he has him, but he ends up running an easy stunt. He comes inside, the back ends up missing him. But he was assigned to him. But again, there's a guy coming clean, and the QB doesn't even get hit. Or he might have got hit. No, he couldn't even hit him. It would have been illegal. We're not holding the ball very long. That's just the bench. You know, there's a bunch of these on here. Here we are against Miami. You know, here's the look. It's hard to see, but these two outside rushers, this is their 4-3 look. It's the Sam and the Willie blitzing, and the middle backer is right here. This is the free safety actually walked way up here to take number 2 weak, which is this back. But we can block. There's 6-man blitz. Actually, there's 7-man blitz. If the mic comes, we got people assigned to them. But we're blocking everybody, and we're going to hit the outs here. Or the takeoff, 60 takeoff, same thing. We might want to throw the bomb. All right, but if we're in rifle and this guy is now a slot, we've got to throw hot off of that guy right there. But now with the fullback in the game, we can block the blitz and throw a bench or throw a takeoff or throw whatever the heck we want to throw to those wide receivers one-on-one. This is the same deal. Miami versus stacked blitz. They're bringing the house. You know, we just match up one-on-one there. Just more of the same. Here's quarter halves. Quarters on the front side, halves on the back side. And, you know, he's got soft corner to the field, so he wants to throw the bench to the field. Pretty effortless for the quarterback. Another thing about the gun, under center, that quarterback's flying 100 miles an hour out of there. And in the gun, he's in a relaxed state. Doesn't have to work real hard. All right, here's the smash.
Tell you center anything special to getting always the same.
A lot of reps. We work a lot of reps. We just tell him to hit him in the belly button, you know, right in the middle of the guy. That's his aiming point. And during the kicking game, the centers that aren't in the kicking game are snapping the ball to the QBs. Okay, smash again was the two stop routes outside, the flag routes inside. And just read the corner. If the corner sinks, hit the stop. If they're tight, the corner's tight, hit the flag.
Versus a hard corner, coach, you're just going to run 6 yards and stop.
Yeah, we're going to stay stopped because what people like to do is jam like hard corner, and as soon as you release inside, then they try to sink and take away, intercept the flag. So if he wants to do that, we'll at least have somebody to try to hold him there. Here's the weak side. He thought the corner was tight enough up top where he went ahead and threw the flag route there. That was Canal in the Maryland game. Danny Canal has got a good shot at being the starter. Nebraska hitting the flag to the field.
The other time those two smash routes and work back inside is when the flag coverage runs out to end and throw off corners.
Right, and we didn't even see one of those. Now, in this particular game against Florida, we knew we were going to see man under against them, so we told Vanover, you automatically run a six-yard drag. Instead of a stop, run at a drag. And we told Dunn, instead of running a vertical, you run a little option route on him. Just work inside or outside on that guy. And Charlie ended up going to Warwick one-on-one right there. That was the smash play, but versus man coverage, we had a little adjustment versus Florida. You know, they just go to a 3 deep. Now here's a pit, you really can't see it, but if this guy was soft and this flat player did run out here, this flat player did run out there, he should just slide into the next hole. That's the only adjustment we had versus 3 deep. Now that guy was also the hot player, like we said before. If you got a blitz on the weak side, I think we're going to see that here in just a second. All right, here's another flag route versus a hard corner on the boundary. So you got the hard corner up top. I'll see if we can get this hot throw. All right, here's a hot look here. I believe this guy's going to blitz. We can't get him. We turn him loose, but we throw a hot right here. And QB did get hit here, but referees control that pretty good if the ball's gone. Now let's see what else we got here. All right, choice. We'll show a few choices. Again, here's just your curl flat play, real simple. This is out of Panther. Got your back scatting. Got your flat player, working wide. I mean, it's just stealing. Just a 10-yard route. We don't hold the ball very long. All right, here we go right here in the boundary again. This guy ends up being who we would consider the flat player, and Charlie throws the ball. Watch this guy here. He didn't even get blocked. But, you know, you're still getting the ball off. There weren't many sacks. The kid would pull the trigger. Here we are on the wide side of the field. You know, 3 deep look. This guy jumps. You know, we love it when the flat players go flat in a hurry, even if they are in man. It really makes an easy, quick decision for the quarterback. All right, right here, he thought the flat player held off the curl a little bit. He hung in there a little bit, so he just went out in the flat. Now instead of that 200, see, when you run the curl flat with a tight end in the game sometimes, well, he doesn't stretch the defense as fast because he's in there, or you flex him out there and he's just a big old guy and he catches it and falls down. It's not very good. We got a nice hot throw here pretty soon. Okay, right here, here's the tight end in the game here. Here's the safety trying to disguise the blitz a little bit, look like zone. They're bringing everybody. You can see we stick a hat on everybody except for the strong safety. That was the hot we were talking about this morning, and the 60 protection. Now, if we were in gold, what would have happened in gold? You know, the tight end would have picked him up. But now he's hot in the flat because it's 60. We just hit him with the ball and end up running pretty good. Okay, 560 choice, all that is. It's the same play, only 4 wides. Now, there's a pretty good choice, right? You can see that the receiver treated him like the flat player and tried to work over the top about a yard inside. I mean, he's just finding the open area right there. This is just more of the same, only 4 wide receivers doing it. I won't keep you here all night. Q, we didn't even go over Q. All Q was instead of the guys running choice routes, they ran a flag route. All right, here was that smoke play. Of course, McCorvey made a liar out of me. He's probably 14, 15 yards before he runs the flag. But there's the stop. There's the 10-yard route coming back straight down the stem. You can see up here, watch the back. He's cutting the contained man, bang. Guards pulling for anybody trailing late, and everybody else is kind of tail protected on the backside. See, our cameraman didn't get it because we did it as a fire call, and the end zone guy wasn't even ready to shoot it because we went just a little bit faster than our normal operation. I mean, real simple play, but it was easy to run without people being lined up in a hurry. There he is hitting the flag route behind it. See the corner starting to jump to stop, and then hitting the flag behind it. Well, that's about all I was going to show you guys. If anybody is interested in seeing some of these trick plays at the end, we can fast forward it there. Just, you won't hurt my feelings to just take off whenever you want to. I'm going to move on to these trick plays. If anybody wants to see them, you can. If you want to go home, go to bed, do that too. All right, here's some of the running game out of the shotgun. Okay.
How many running plays do you do?
Not many. Out of the one-back gun, we got a couple zones. You know, we'll run this little zone. This isn't a good picture of it because the back, we really didn't get to the point of attack. But if we had 5 in the box, we would just double team the one technique to the backer, and of course, really the play. We should have been running the other way to the one technique probably, but he never got there. We'll get a better picture of this here in a second. Well, this is against a 50. But really just running a zone play strong and a zone play weak. We had the little direct snap play. I mean, you get people in a pass rushing mode. Outside, the tackles don't do anything but pass set the guys, really. Get a little double team. You got to get your receiver in there There's a pretty good job of the receiver coming on in there and having to get this man here. You know, the guy who's walked out halfway. We get a little bit of, you know, if you get 2 or 3 or 4 yards, I mean, you're doing okay. You're keeping them honest. There's a pretty decent shot. That's a pretty decent shot of it. Double teamed the backside backer. You know, the receiver's trying to come in there. You know, we cut the whole year. We thought it was illegal, but no ref ever called it. So we had those receivers cutting from the outside a bunch. Yeah, and we had a little direct play here. I'll show you. The direct snap to the back. All right, now this was the 2-back play. It was just basically an isolation play from split back. Double team to the backside backer, and the lead back blocked him. The problem on this play is the guard never comes off of that backer. We turn him free. But you'll see a couple more here. I think we get on him a little bit here. All right, here's your double team to the backside. There's your lead blocker there. There's your receiver coming in outside. You know, we can get a hat on everybody. And we got about 10, 12 yards. But that was, you know, our 32. That was Fred and Wilma. Flintstones. But that's all that was. We ran it either way, to either back, either direction. Well, a lot of times, you know, some weeks we felt it was better to run to the 1. Sometimes we wanted to run to the 3. Just depended on the team.
This is 6-man in the box play for you.
Yeah, sure is. Matter of fact, believe it or not, we had a freeze play with the center. We'd say, Shiver, freeze play. Shiver, that was our center, freeze play. And we'd heel kick, and then Shiver would look around. You know, we go stack, stack, Shiver look around, then Shiver would go, hike! But he wouldn't snap the ball. In the gun, you know, we get defensive linemen jumping off sides, and he'd actually snap the ball to the center there. And then if they didn't jump, then Charlie would call Fred or Wilma, Flintstone, you know, and or check to the passing game from the gun. Of course, you know, these are the good runs. Those are very few runs against Notre Dame. This was a good run. I'll just show you his effort on this kid, William Floyd, fullback. They loved this play because they got to stand up like an eye back, and they got to get the ball on something besides the belly. So the fullbacks really love this play. And the tailbacks got to go out there and block somebody every once in a while. 33, that was just the weak side run. All right, here's the direct snap. Just a little quick trap. You snap the ball directly to the back. Center block back, you know, the guard. We'll show it from behind. But the tight guard would work to the linebacker, and we'd kick out the 3 technique with the backside guard. And we just snap the ball directly to the tailback. See the center blocking back, guard taking the middle backer, and we're kicking out the 3 technique with the backside guard. Everybody else is pass setting. Charlie acts like he caught the ball and is dropping back. We just laid that baby in there to the back. This play we got from the Buffalo Bills that really helped us beat Miami. We had 2 third and longs. 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, got both of them against Miami. A heck of a run. Now this time, the guard couldn't get to the linebacker, so the backside guard should have come around for the linebacker, but he pulled too flat and we didn't get there, but speed and effort by Dunn. All right, here's one against 50 front. Kid hit the crease and was gone. He's one of the fastest kids in America in the 55-meter run this year as a true freshman. Okay, 43, all 43 was we'd be in split backs. Instead of running the isolations from split backs, we just shifted to the eye and ran it strong and weak. That was Tarzan and Jane I was telling you about. It's just a simple isolation play. But, you know, we had carryover, split back, and I formation. And nothing at all mysterious about what we did. Other than, again, the tempo, the shifts, the personnel groups. We had great players. And we had a great quarterback. You made things happen for us. It's just more of that. I'll get into some of these trick plays. All right, here's 48Z reverse. Just quickly, we're telling everybody blocking their zone rules up on the front side. On the back side, split tackle scoops down to the center. He kicks out the first thing. The split guard scoops 2 gaps and tries to get in the alley here. And then the center is looking for a trailer. The quarterback tosses a sweep, gets his head around looking for the contained player. And we'll cut his outside knee and just seal it off for that receiver. A late hit there. QB really had the biggest block of this whole deal every time. See, Charlie does a pretty nice job tossing the ball. That's his normal action. Then he's going to seal that guy inside. Now we got guys downfield doing pretty good. We're allowed to cut. We like our linemen to throw downfield, accelerate their feet and cut. Okay, here's a lesser of an athlete at quarterback trying to block. First time he's ever done this. I don't even think I practiced with this kid. We had our 2s in the game. But there's a pretty good picture of the tackle coming out and kicking out the support.
You fake that, Coach? Those are all coming after that.
Do we fake it? Yeah, 46 sucker. Fake it and he just keeps it. Yeah, we'd have scored there too, wouldn't we? 46 sucker, 48Z reverse. 48Z reverse pass, 48 throwback to the quarterback, pass 46Z slant. I mean, we throw everything off this play. 46 naked, 34 belly is a companion play to that. 34 naked, we run about 1 million things off it. Here's the deal where you told Coach all game long, Coach, the reverse in there. Every time they toss a sweep, Coach Bowden says, is the reverse there? No. Is the reverse there? No. I'm calling it anyway. So he'll call it anyway, and it's dead. There's a guy there, and then the kid, makes him miss and get 20 yards. He told you. He told you so. So you quit arguing. You just run it. If he asks if it's there, you just run it. That's terrible, isn't it? See, these are my puppies in there now. Okay, now he got a reputation on this one. Fainted in the hole, huh? QB should have just killed that guy. Those guards, those people, those linemen are down there blocking. Let's see, we got enough of that one. Okay, X reverse. We just fake our 45, which is our weak isolation play, then bring our X around on a naked, basically a naked bootleg. But they squeeze it pretty good, and definitely a speed guy needs to be running it. He stepped out of bounds way back there on about the 30. Against Brigham Young, we opened the game with it in the Pigskin Classic. Early in the game, teams that really pursue the ball, these kind of plays are good. There's a middle screen. What in the heck did I do? Basically, everybody's just blocking inside out. We'll always have somebody protecting the screen with the pick on that man. Then the tackle's working to the next man out. I'd take the center guard. I would double team the inside backer. The inside backer here chases the back because we actually scat him in the boundary, so we don't have to block him. We'll get a good wall of blockers there. Think about this play. It's not that easy to throw. And once that receiver gets blown up, you know, they don't like it anyway. They're running in there looking for the ball, and they don't know who's about to kill them. We ran against Miami, and they blew up one of our kids, and it was over. There's a halfback pass that's supposed to trick everybody. Tossing the sweep, showing the run, and then, you know, running the little flag route there, but it didn't fake anybody out. Kid just made a great catch. Got a couple of those. Neither one of them got open. Throw back to the quarterback. I'll show you that, and then I'll show you the crocodile wall. Go home. Throw back to the quarterback. Tossing the sweep. And running back takes about 5 steps and throws it back to the quarterback. There he just scoops the backside. Here it is against Notre Dame. This is 4th and 1 or 2, I think. And we had to have it. Of course, we lost anyway, but we got close enough to where the voters gave us another chance. So get this crocodile play. All right, here's crocodile. This is the double pass or the screen pass to the quarterback. It's Casey Weldon at quarterback against Michigan. He throws the ball out to Charlie Ward. We should have had Charlie under center and the Casey out there, but we didn't. You see the man in motion is out there protecting the receiver out there. Here's the tight end on the backside coming across trying to draw attention to him. Of course, Michigan's going to pursue the ball, and we got a wall of blockers and a runner and got a chance. See, he got hit right there. He got a hip pointer. And he fumbled the ball. We ended up getting on it, but I think we got it here one more time. Here's Charlie as the receiver of it. Baker does a nice job of faking. The receiver does a good job of looking downfield and turning back. Charlie got killed on this play, if you notice. Watch Charlie on this one. He just got murdered. But this thing ended up being a lateral. You can see he caught the ball behind the line. This ended up being a lateral. This gave him, because this was a run instead of a pass reception, he broke the school record. He had like 450 yards of offense in that game. So he ended up breaking the school record on that. Berlin, that's just Hail Mary pass at the end of the game. Anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging in. You're a great group, and I hope you all got a little something out of it.